Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and today I'll be flying solo without Clint. But we've got a very special guest on the show today. He used to jump out of planes to fight fires. Now he also started and sold multiple businesses in many different verticals. And now he owns a software and development agency focused on helping entrepreneurs bring their digital applications to life. Before I introduce our special guest today, I want to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and to our mailing list or our website so that you don't miss out on all of our free resources we have to help you start and grow your business. With that said, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Geordie Wardman, to the show. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Good. Yeah, really excited to have you on the show.
Likewise.
So we'll just kind of get right into it here. So the first question for you is, can you take us back to when your entrepreneurial journey started? You've bought and sold a bunch of different companies. You used to be a firefighter. How did your kind of love for entrepreneurship start? And what is it about entrepreneurship that really gets you fired up?
Yeah, sure. So I think as I converted from being a firefighter, first of all, I loved being a firefighter. It was a great job. I was probably like 29 at the time when I started thinking, okay, maybe this isn't like great to, sort of settle down with. Cause, obviously I'm
not sustainable.
I'm out on the road. Like, you're out, whatever, California, then you're going to Wyoming, then you're all over the place. I said, okay, well, what can I do that will allow me to work from anywhere? Basically, I was thinking sort of the digital nomad sort of life. This is pretty back early in the 2000s kind of. And digital nomads didn't even really exist. And I was thinking, okay, well, probably something to do with computers. So I shifted from being a firefighter to learning how to program. And that's sort of where it started. I got an office job. I really didn't like it. It's too much politics. And so I made the shift by basically leaving the office job for, programming. And I started my first company that way. So it was a bit daunting. I had a wife and two babies at the time. And so it wasn't an easy shift, but I had planned for it. So it was, but it was intentional. Yeah, it was exciting once I got going.
Yeah. And what was that first business that you started? Was that something to do with shorts?
Yeah, that's right. It was a Bermuda shorts company. And so that one was not really that. So what happened with that? It was like I had to take out a big loan every year. To sort of run
inventory.
For inventory and stuff. So basically what would happen is I would take out a loan, I would buy the inventory, I would, run the year. I would basically sell out everything. But in order to grow the line, I couldn't really, I had to increase my line, but I couldn't really pay myself. So it was pretty clear to me that it wasn't a great business model. I mean, it could have been, but I would have to go out and raise capital and, probably not pay myself that much. So I shifted and started another company at the same time. This is also while I had a full-time job. So I obviously was working really hard and saw that wasn't sustainable. So I sold the Bermuda shorts company and I did pretty well from that. At that time I was, it was probably like 3 years that I could live off of that type of money. So it was,
that's amazing.
Okay money. So I was able to take that money and kind of start another business. And from that, I basically have never looked back. And that was another business that I subsequently sold in about 2015. That was putting Wi-Fi into hotels in Mexico. And
Oh,
that
wow.
was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun. It was like I moved to Mexico and I learned how to speak Spanish, and it was surfing all the time, and my family
Oh,
loved it.
I would
And
love
so,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah. So it was
surf, I
great.
snowboard. Yeah.
Yeah, same with
So,
me.
okay, cool. Yeah. I kind of figured that you've got the kind of the beach and the mountains kind of vibe. You're in
Yeah,
Switzerland now. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people can relate to that where they want to live, they want to live more, they want to be
yeah,
outside and they want to enjoy their life and enjoy, fun activities, especially when they're physical activities. You
yeah,
want to be able to do that before you retire at 65 or 70. And then you're like, well, I don't have enough time or energy
yeah.
to get
Yeah.
to
Plus,
do
it's
this
really
stuff.
hard to learn how to learn those new sports when you're,
Yeah.
even 55,
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So, well, and you talked about some interesting things there with, so you've kind of shifted from physical products with your short company to more digital.
It was more services at that time. We
Yep.
didn't really have a product. It was more of a services company. So I had raised some money from a guy that I knew in Bermuda, which is where I'm from. And we went to Mexico with that sort of seed investment. We bought some equipment and set up some really nice contracts for about 6 or 7 years. The
Hmm.
contracts were with some hotels. So we were in early on the curve and they were very lucrative contracts. So that basically set us up, for a business to sustain. It was lasted about 10 years before we sold it. And the reason we sold it was because the market was getting more and more competitive, and the hotels were always trying to get out of their contracts, and it just became a headache. So
Yeah.
I shifted from there into e-commerce and software. So again, I was doing two things at one time, but the one sort of thing that has been consistent in my career is that I've always been involved in software, which is
Okay.
basically led me to where I am now, where I'm going to stay.
Gotcha. Yeah. So even with a physical selling a physical product, you still have the kind of back end software, e-commerce. You're still selling something online, so you still have to be pretty adept at that part of it too.
Right, the
Besides
software
just
systems and stuff. Now I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
do any products. I don't do any products. I got out of. I
yeah.
sold my last e-com business a few years ago, and since then I've been in software.
Okay, love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. I have a service business. I do physical product development for people, and then I also have a physical product based company. This would be right up your alley. We sell bamboo surfboard, snowboard, and bike racks.
Oh,
So for
cool.
all kinds
Okay.
of different boards, bikes, kayaks. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
For your wall, we have a few freestanding options. But man, it's like we have almost 30 different SKUs. We have to deal with the logistics of
Hmm.
of manufacturing and then fulfilling a product, packing up a product, and then
Yeah.
shipping it to our customers and all that. And it's cool. I mean, there's definitely having a physical product and selling it is very cool. It's very rewarding in a way, but you were talking about getting out a loan every year to pay for inventory. I mean,
Hmm.
that would definitely be one way to do it. What we do is, we don't really, for a while, we weren't paying ourselves very much and we
Hmm.
were just running it really, really lean.
Yeah.
So, but it's tricky. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely I 100% see the allure of digital. There's so many things you can do with it. It's you can be really flexible and you can kind of manage it from anywhere too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
And so yeah, I really like what you as I was going through your services now with your software development company. You talk a lot about creating not just developing developing software or an application from start to finish, but you also talk about creating a minimum viable product or MVP.
Hmm.
And I really like that because it allows you, I think, to get something started and get some kind of get some traction, especially with a digital application. Can you talk about the importance of starting a business lean and proving out a concept before pouring tons of money into it?
Yeah, definitely. So the most important thing about starting a software company is basically getting something into the user's hands so you can get feedback. Because there's been so many times where people come to me and they're like, they may not know that much about software, and they're used to using software, and they're like, they think of like a full featured, like a Dropbox or anything that, MailChimp or something like that. I mean, MailChimp has been around for 15 years. They've probably got like $50 million in development time in that.
Yeah.
So people just need to like totally erase those sorts of finished products when you come in thinking about starting an MVP, and really eliminating it down to the one core problem that you're trying to solve. So I'll give you an example of a software that I've had for a while, and it's still like, I don't do anything with it, but it basically gets people reviews, for like their, your hair salon or something like that. And so when we built that MVP, we basically, we knew it was a problem. And people, I came to some customers and was like, what do you needed to do? And it's just, but basically I just needed to get reviews. And so we figured out a workflow that basically sent auto, reminders. It gave a short survey and says, were you happy with your experience? And how likely are you to recommend? So those two questions, increase the conversions. We knew who was happy for a review and who wasn't. And then we just followed up with them. And so that was, we didn't spend very much on that. So, it's probably 10, 15,000, something like that.
Okay.
But other people come and they'll send me, I made these mock-ups and there's like 90 screens or something, and I immediately can sell me this stuff. I'm looking at $50,000 or something. It's like, let's get this down to like 15 screens. Cause what's the core thing that you're trying to do?
And just do that really well.
And just do that really well and slim everything down. When I first launched the review platform, I didn't have a billing gateway. So I was like manually sending PayPals, like manually doing reports. So that just shows, that's really thin, but you can, the reports that you need to do is like, if you need to have reports, just do like one or two reports that you like are absolutely necessary, because the reports that you think that you need are likely not going to be the ones that the users want, and they will end up telling you what they want. So the whole idea is to get like 10, 15 users in so that they can start telling you like, okay, this is what I need. This is what I want. And that's really how the app grows. That's the best way for an app to grow.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, because when you try and throw everything at it in the beginning, you're going off of, you may have done some market research, or maybe you're just going off of your own feeling, what you want, but really having paying customers tell you what they want and what they need there's no better way to figure out what's going to sell and what's going to do well than that.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And you can learn from the bigger companies like Dropbox that you were mentioning. I'm sure they're doing the same thing. They started out with a very, very simple thing. It still is very, very simple.
Yeah.
But some of the bells and whistles that they have now, I'm sure came from their customers saying, hey, this is what we want. This is what we need. Not from them sitting back and saying, you know what, let's develop this thing and implement this, not knowing exactly how well it's going to do. So I think that's a really great way to do it. I've seen some of my clients on the physical product side set on something, like dead set on certain features. And sometimes even if I tell them it's going to jack up the development costs and the manufacturing cost and all these things, like, no, we need it. And then at the end of the day, it's not something that would have helped to sell one more unit or, really improve the product all that much, but it's something they just kind of had in their head. So it's really good to get out of your head, out of your own way and do things that the customer wants.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing I was checking out on your website is you're talking about machine learning and AI, and that's huge right now. Obviously, there's a lot of people talking about that kind of thing and what the future of that is, and um, autonomous robots and everything. But it kind of sounds very futuristic, but really it's been going on for a while, we're sort of scratching the tip of the iceberg here, I think, in terms of what can be done with machine learning. What do you think the most important application of machine learning is so far?
So in terms of machine learning, the best uses that I think for that is for when there's large amounts of data to go through huge. I mean, we're talking like the more data, the better, because that's when machine learning is going to be the most useful.
Because it learns the more data, the more it kind of can learn and understand patterns and
exactly.
Things, right?
And it's at this point, it's really the best way for people to think about machine learning is sort of like a binary yes, no is where it's really good. So you can write algorithms they're like, does this follow the pattern? Yes or no. And so it's really good at getting, like getting results down. Like, so you run a query on something and there's, let's say there's thousands of data sets. And if it recognizes a pattern, it would be really good at saying, okay, this follows a pattern, this doesn't, and separating that data.
Okay.
That's the way I like to explain it or think about it. And so people think that sometimes they think, oh, I want a machine learning app, and they describe the app, and it's like that's actually not a great use of machine learning, because you can do that just with regular SQL queries.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, large amounts of data. Tasks that would be really difficult for a human to, or even a team of people to really
basically like impossible, or not impossible, but for example, like I built an app that was before it had machine learning, I was having to go through like say maybe 1,000 records to find like 50 good ones. Okay. And that gets really annoying if you're doing that every day. We installed machine learning, and now we get now I can get those 50 records and they're totally clean and without all the other thousands of bad records. Yeah,
that makes sense. Now, how about I think a lot of people might think, including myself, until kind of recently, until I learned more about AI and machine learning and how it can be applied to apps. I kind of thought that it was sort of out of reach. It was really, really crazy difficult, probably pretty costly to figure out how to develop and implement into an application. But it doesn't sound like it really is. Is it something? Sounds like it's something that you kind of maybe even do regularly for clients who need it, and how realistic is it to add like an AI feature into an application?
It's really actually totally reasonable. I will say that finding a good AI engineer, like machine learning engineer, can be difficult if you're just looking on your by yourself for it. But the one thing that you really want to ask is like, how accurate are your results? Because when it comes right down to it, that's all that matters, right? So if you have an engineer that says, oh, we can get it within 80%, I'll probably keep looking. The engineer that I have, there's a couple of guys that I have, they're like in the 95, 96 percentile, and that's really good. And so, if that's the way you qualify, like finding a good engineer, but it's totally reasonable. I mean, they're hot skills, but it's not that much more than a good programmer. So, and if you have an app that has machine learning, whether or not you need to continue using that developer, is probably debatable. Maybe you get the AI developed and then you sort of develop around that core algorithm, and you can build an app relatively affordably. And it's got, like when you go to investors and you say you've got machine learning, it raises their interest level, because those are hot on the market right now.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's talking about algorithms. And again, that sounds pretty out of reach and kind of crazy, but it sounds like it's actually pretty reasonable. And then do you kind of have to have ongoing, typically you have to have ongoing work to refine and improve your algorithm and your
You
AI?
typically you would, but like say for example, it doesn't need to be a full-time developer, So once
Okay.
he's got the app, once he's got the algorithms developed, which for us for this one app took maybe 3-4 months. Once he's got that developed, I don't need him full time, so he can be floating in other projects, or if it's from an agency, you just write, say, hey, we need to update. Can you make it do this? And maybe it comes in and takes 3 weeks or something. So it's not like
Gotcha.
a constant thing. I mean, if you have a big app and you have a lot of users and there's a lot of demand on the system, you might want to be consistently refining and going back over the algorithm to make it even more accurate or expanding its functionality. So it just sort of depends on your needs.
Yeah, cool. Well, and that's what I like about you and your team. It seems like you're pretty agile and you're able to really do work on a project as little or as much as is required. And you don't, it's not this, doesn't sound like it's this crazy, out of reach type project scope and cost for people. I mean, it's not like developing anything is ever cheap, and people definitely need to have the right expectations. You're investing. I deal with this with, people wanting to develop a product. It's not going to necessarily be cheap, because and it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your business. And so you're going to have to put up some money at some point along the way. But I like the idea of like getting started, getting some traction, and then building it from there, instead of, really like there's investing some money into something, and then there's just going kind of overboard and crazy and trying to do
It's not a huge commitment. It's not a huge commitment. You can get started with, 15,000 is totally reasonable.
Okay. That's cool. That's good to kind of have an idea of roughly where projects start at. Yeah. So Geordie, through your entrepreneurial journey from the highest to the lows, what's been the most difficult thing for you about being an entrepreneur?
I would say when I moved to Europe, it was about 5 years ago. I think that move, I felt a little bit isolated because I'm living in Switzerland. There's not a big entrepreneurial tech scene. There's also a language barrier. So I live in the French part. I lived in the Italian part before, but it wouldn't even have mattered because it's not like an entrepreneurial environment here. So I would say one of the biggest challenges for me has been feeling isolated and finding like mentors and finding a community. And so I have gravitated towards some online ones, and that's fine. Yeah. But when I was in Mexico, there was a much bigger tech scene and an entrepreneurial scene there. And I could have meetups. There was people coming down that like were, entrepreneurs that were doing like meetups down there, and I could join them. There was people starting their own businesses there, so we could talk about the same things. And that's not happening really in Europe. I mean, it is a bit, but it's much more fragmented, right? So I would say that was a big challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that's kind of an important thing too. As entrepreneurs, we want to do our own thing, blaze our own trail. And, and we start with this intention of sort of being an island, but you can't do it alone. And it definitely gets kind of lonely when you're just day after day, you're doing the same thing.
And you're at home alone. Like for me, I don't need an office, so I just work from home, which is why I wanted to do it, right? I can go out and ski or whatever. But it's also lonely, as you say. And also, forging your own trail, there's no reason to do that. If other people have done it, you just follow a template, and so that's what I'm looking for. And so I've cycled through. At times I've had really good coaches, and for whatever reason, they move on or I move on. And so it's a constant sort of thing looking for a great coach, but having a good coach has been really transformative for me. And and having a mentor as well. And I also cycle through mentors. But I'm in the process of looking for a good mentor now.
Okay, cool. And how do you do that? Are you paying for, there's mentors out there resources you can pay for. Some are like reasonably priced. Some are thousands of dollars a month, which could be worth it.
Yeah.
Or are you finding somebody who's just willing to, they're just so excited to work with you and help build what you're doing, and they've kind of put in their time and they're just happy to do it for free?
Well, so I've had both, really, and I actually think that the ones that you pay for are better because you have their attention, right? And so I had a good coach. He charges like, it was something, like it sounds like a lot, but as you say, like when you're using it for an hour or two, it's like some of the best money you can spend, because
Okay.
you're really doing strategy, right? So this guy that I had was charging $250 an hour, which, to me sounds maybe like a lot, but it's really not. I only needed him for an hour, right? We could cover so much stuff in an hour, and he'd give me like homework basically and says, okay, here's what you need to do for the next time we meet. And,
Cool.
And so, he would give me like, in one session, he'd give me like 6 months worth of work, so there's no way I could do it all. So, but I would try, and it also was good for accountability because, I'm meeting with him and say, oh man, I haven't even done this stuff yet. So I need like 2 weeks before the meeting, I need to start like, going through and knocking those back. But in terms of like having someone that knows your business and can stay with you and be like talk strategy, it's been hugely beneficial for me to have that person. It's another set of eyes. That person is used to talking business. He's used to, different types of businesses, solving business problems. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you find somebody like that?
So one of the I just basically find someone that's like 3 years or 5 years ahead of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So someone that's doing the same thing. So for my example, I'm building an agency. I just crossed 6 figures monthly, so that was a big milestone. If I'm looking for a mentor, maybe I want to look for a guy that's doing like $500,000 a month. So someone where I want to be in 5 years or 3 years or something. So that is someone that I would just go to a podcast, and maybe like if I heard of someone, ask my network, hey, I'm looking for someone that's done this. And then I go out and reach out to them and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be open? I'm willing to pay for you. Sometimes it'd be like, no, I don't want to take your money. There's got to be some kind of synchronous dynamic between us, and other times they're like, yeah, sure, this is what we do for our business too. So EOS is a great resource. The Traction, entrepreneurial operating system. There's coaches in there. So that's I follow EOS for
EOS. Okay. Yeah, definitely have to check that out.
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
really good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So, and it sounds like maybe like look for somebody who's where you want to be in a few years, but maybe, if you just cross 6 figures a month, maybe don't look for somebody who's 7 or 8 figures a month. Look for something don't
somewhere in between. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 8 figures a month. I mean, I can't even relate to what, if you're at 8 figures a month, you probably got a team of like 100 people and,
right.
that sort of thing.
Dealing with different logistical
Yeah, totally
issues.
Different. I mean, he'll be thinking back to when he was at 6, and I don't even want to ever get to 8 figures. That's not where I want to be. I want to be like somewhere nice, mid, 6 figures would be great. And, it's nice as long as I wasn't going down and there was monthly recurring revenues. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cause you can easily have some issue, if you don't want to have a big team and a lot of, people on staff and all that kind of thing, which can be great, or it can be kind of a nightmare. I think it's really important. A lot of people would say, oh yeah, I just want to make as much money as possible, but you have to understand what that means. And for some things, some businesses, you can make more with less resources, or you can at least outsource some things. With other businesses, it might that might mean if you want to be $1 billion a year business, that means different things to different businesses. So some can be really lean, and some you just might need a team of a couple thousand people or more to hit that, so kind of have to figure out, understand where you are, what market you're in, what product service you're selling, and understand what making that much more money means. So I think it's really cool to know where you want to be and get to that point.
Exactly.
I love that. Cool. So, as we wrap up this episode, Geordie, can you if you had to leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
This whenever someone asks me that question, the first thing that comes into my mind is always the same thing, and that's finish the task at hand or nothing gets done. And I always come back to that because it seems that entrepreneurs a lot of the time, they get excited. We're all sort of excited. We're visionaries, and we want to do. We hear about something, so I want to do that, or I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I think it really has helped me. It's just staying focused and thinking, okay, what is it that I need to do right now in order to move this project forward, and really own channels, marketing channels. So I'm not going to be someone that's going out and trying, some YouTube ads or some SEO and some Facebook. And, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do like outbound, and I'm going to figure it out and get it going. And then I'm going to go and do SEO. If that's my plan. It may seem like it's slower at times, but it gives me like comfort in knowing that I'm being focused. So I don't like to do, whenever I have like 5 projects that are like 80% done, that stresses me out.
Oh man. Yeah. I hear you.
So I just be like, forget about the other 4. I'm going to finish this one thing. I'm going to like knock it, do the best job that I can, take it as far as I can. If I can, as soon as I've understand it and it's done, then maybe I can start delegating it or whatever. So I would say that has helped me through my, 10, 15 years more than any other advice.
I couldn't agree more with that. It's, there's so many different things that kind of distract us as entrepreneurs, especially when we're not necessarily accountable to anybody but ourselves. So I can see that being another great reason for a mentor. But I struggle with the same thing, and I think focus has really, really, over the last few years, I've focused more than I did before. And it's made a massive impact in my businesses, because you get that task done that's right in front of you. And you also, I think something that happens to me is if I'm in the weeds in a certain task, like let's say I'm designing a product, and I feel like I'm too in the weeds there. I feel like I'm not growing my business. I'm not doing the things that I want to do for my business that can take it to the next level. But I also know that I have to get that task done. So I can get a little ADD. So it's difficult to focus sometimes, but it's important as long as you have that vision and you know where you're going. I couldn't agree more that it's important to just do what's right in front of you. And that also kind of speaks to having a strategy. You really need to be confident in what your strategy is for growth and for business development. And then if you feel, the more confident I am in that and what my strategy is, the better I feel about doing those things that get me in the weeds. Because I feel like, well, I know I'll finish this task and then the next one, and I just build
it out
on top of each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's good to have those strategies. It's like a year-long vision or plan. As long as you're always returning to that, and you know that strategy is going to be successful, and you're building towards something that makes sense. So one other advice I always think of too is there's nothing more expensive than bad advice, and that's just sort of someone telling you you should, this is how you set your company up, right? And you set, or you start building a software program, and you have cheap developers, or you're talking to a tax advisor and he tells you the wrong thing, and you know 5 years later you end up you're realizing you wasted 250 grand on So I would say look for good advisors, and so that's why I don't mind paying. Like if there's a good coach, I'll pay him $1,000 a month just for an hour of his time, because it's only an hour of his time. And that, if I spend $12,000 paying him, once a month, he's probably going to make me much more than that, implementing the strategy, which could end up being $1 million,
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That strategy and that putting that plan together, having some help putting that plan together is so critical, especially from somebody who understands it, who
has done it, understands it. You don't have to recreate it. I could waste 5 years trying to do what he could tell me how to do in a month,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so I'm with my business, I'm actually starting I've already started. I've got a service called Stoke Strategies. So my product development business is Stoke Ventures, and I do physical product development. But I've realized how many entrepreneurs don't really understand the strategy part of it and how to get from point A to point B, and from their idea to monetization. So I put together a service called Stoke Strategies, where at first I was one-on-one helping clients, put together a game plan to do market research, business modeling, marketing and sales strategies. And now I'm putting together an info product for that. But what I realize is I can't be giving advice on how to build a 9-figure business. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to give advice on how to get started. I know how to do that, how to get started and build something that's like sustainable and that, that you can make a living at and do well. That's cool. But I think there's a lot of people, you got to be careful, because there's a lot of people out there who haven't built that 9-figure business, but they're somehow going to tell you how it's done. Exactly. I definitely agree. Take advice from people who actually have been there and know what you're trying to do.
So you would be the perfect mentor for someone that's just getting going, because you're a few steps ahead of them. Maybe you're more, but it's realistic to have a conversation with you as opposed to that guy that's doing 8 or 9 figures,
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I'm more in tune with what that startup is feeling. It wasn't that long ago that I was starting up myself. So that's cool. So, well, Geordie, it's really been a pleasure to have you on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with us and, with our audience here.
Great. It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Yeah. Thanks, Geordie. Thank you all so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Geordie is working on, check out onestopdevshop.io. And if you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our podcast, and don't forget to download our free ebook and the success mindset at thatentrepreneurlife.com. And thank you for your continued support for what we do as entrepreneurs. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.